Hello, my name's Sheila and this video is to accompany the manual for MIDISID. As the name suggests, this has MIDI in and generates audio out using two SIDs, the sound chip from the Commodore 64 1982 home computer. How does it translate the MIDI's 16 channels to the 6 voices that it has? Well, there are several ways that it can do that. The mode that you choose will depend on what you're doing, and that's what I'm going to show you in this video. At the very top level of the menu is the mode selection, and it defaults to general MIDI mode. This means that you can switch on, play a .mid file, and MIDISID will do its best to render the MIDI data. MIDI can potentially use 16 channels and have multiple notes happening on each channel, but here we have a hard limitation of 6 voices. The mapping is very straightforward in general MIDI mode. Channels 1 to 6 are mapped to voices 1 to 6. If anything comes in on channel 10, conventionally reserved for percussion with a different drum sound for each MIDI note, then that is mapped to voice 6, replacing channel 6. This means that if you're playing a .mid file, fewer channels will work better. Or if you're composing your own music or modifying .mid files so that they play well on MIDISID, it's important to stick to 6 channels only, or at least prioritise the important sounds. Anything on other channels won't be heard. That brings us to the question of what happens when we have more than one note happening at once on the same channel. As far as MIDISID is concerned, at this point in time it receives a note on before it's received the note off for the previous note. The choice is yours. This situation is referred to in the menu as multiple notes. One option is to stop the old note and start the new one. This keeps a melody going where, for example, a player is simply late releasing a note before playing the next one. In that situation, you want to hear the new note start as soon as it's pressed. Another option is to ignore the new note. Another is to arpeggiate the notes. This is a characteristic sound of 80s sound chips, a way to simulate a chord using a single voice. If the music contains chords, then this might be the setting you want. The last option is portamento. In this mode, holding the previous note while pressing the new one triggers a portamento or glide to the new note. General MIDI mode is designed to render a stream of incoming MIDI data. You don't have the ability to design sounds. It's expected that program change messages will be included within each track or channel. A program change will trigger a patch change on the voice mapped to that channel. That patch being one of the 128 predefined MIDI instruments. You can, however, choose the default patch that's applied to all the voices in case program change messages aren't in the MIDI data. This means that you can move multiple instruments to the same channel as long as you make sure that program change messages are included. It also means that if you've switched on or reset your MIDISID, you may need to play your music from the start to make sure that the program change messages are received. MT32 mode is almost identical to general MIDI mode. MT32 was an early MIDI device. The channel mapping is slightly different, starting at channel 2 rather than channel 1, and the list of predefined instruments is also a little different. Some .mid files are designed for MT32 and some games have MT32 MIDI output. Polyphonic mode is suitable for rendering a single track or single instrument where you need to play and hear multiple notes. By default, it doesn't matter which channel the note comes in on. Each incoming note will simply be allocated to the next available voice, up to 6 notes being played at once. You can choose to receive on a single channel rather than all. Polyphonic mode is also the way to go, where your music contains, regardless of channels, contains multiple notes that all want to have the same patch, such as this piano piece. The same patch is applied to all voices. You can choose from the preset instruments or design your own sounds. Monophonic mode is also suitable for playing a single track or instrument and is similar in many respects to polyphonic, except that it combines the voices for more complex sounds. The trade-off is that you can only play one note at a time. As with general MIDI mode, you can choose what happens when a second note is played with the same 4 options. As with polyphonic mode, you can choose from some preset instruments or design your own. There's more scope for designing sounds in this mode because each of the 3 voices on each chip can have its own waveform and envelope. The filter, and therefore the filter sweep, always apply to all voices. This mode enables the more advanced features of the chip, such as ring modulation and waveform sync.